Okay, today we are remastering legs, fam. I've got a few updates for you guys that I think you might be interested in. As always, I'm going to explain my reasoning for the sets and reps I use, the exercise selection, the exercise ordering, and the training cues I use to maximize gains. So let's dive straight into it. I train my legs once a week, okay? You do not need to train your legs twice a week as long as you train them extremely hard. Legs require the most time to recover out of all muscle groups, so in my opinion, you should only be training them once a week. That's my personal opinion, but that is what the literature suggests you should do given how taxing squats, extensions, RDLs are on your central nervous system and also locally, right? Your legs are basically half of your body, right? Your whole lower body. So it does mean that you do need to attribute more resources in order to recover and grow from that. So first pro tip, train your legs once a week, but you have to train them insanely hard. If they are a weak point for you, you may want to start off your training split with a leg day. You may want to have a rest day before you train them. You may want to have a rest day after you train them to ensure proper recovery and growth. But the most important takeaway from this video is you need to train extremely hard on your leg day. Okay, let's begin with the first movement of the day, and that is the adductor machine. This has to be one of the most underutilized, underrated machines of all time. The reason I say this is two things. One, your adductors are relatively responsive to hypertrophy training when compared to the other parts of your legs. And two, if you do fully develop your adductors, it will literally double your legs in size. It will make your legs look way bigger from the front. So if you want to know the fastest way to make your legs look bigger, it's to start training your adductors. So here I'll do 2 sets of 8 to 12 reps, failing within the 8 to 12 rep range. And if I'm feeling energetic, I'll make my last set a rest pause set. But I'll do things a bit differently this time. Instead of just doing a regular rest pause set where I take my last set till failure, take 10 deep breaths, stand up, maybe walk around, I will instead stay in the machine. I'll stay in the stretched position and take my 10 deep breaths and then go again to complete failure. This allows you to generate more stretch-mediated hypertrophy. More and more science is coming out which is supporting the fact that lengthened partials, training in the lengthened position is one of, if not the most important driver of muscle growth. And with this machine, it's incredibly important that you feel the stretch at the bottom. Even when you're doing your regular sets, every rep you should pause in the stretch for at least 1 second. And by doing a stretch pause, by doing this technique, you're getting essentially 10 to 20 seconds of mechanical tension produced in the lengthened position, and this is going to be incredibly effective at building new muscle. As always, aim for 0 reps in reserve. Take your sets to complete failure, to complete concentric and eccentric failure, meaning that even on your last rep, if you've only just managed to finish the rep, make sure to control the weight down because you still have a little bit of strength left on the eccentric, and that's going to be huge for generating muscle growth, that last eccentric. Next is the quad extension. I'll move on to the quad extension, and here I will do what is called a muscle round. A muscle round in this case is essentially 5 sets of 5 reps with 10 seconds of rest between sets. I know the straight sets school of thought, people who only advise that you just do straight sets without partials, without drop sets, without rest pauses, without any intensity technique. They may not agree with me when I do all these stretch pauses and drop sets and muscle rounds, but I like to push myself past my limits. I like to train extremely hard just for my personal peace of mind, and it makes my workouts more enjoyable. If your workouts are dull, if they're boring, if you just do straight sets without changing it up or making things interesting, it can get boring. And also, straight sets are easier than doing these intensity techniques. And if you are a person who wants to maximize results, who wants to push himself as hard as he possibly can, then I would advise you to at least take on board some of these intensity techniques. But in this case, I'm doing a muscle round. Yes, it's an intense way of training, but I eat well, I sleep well, so I'm not concerned with recovery issues. I recover fine because I've dialed in my nutrition and my recovery in terms of sleep, in terms of rest. So this will absolutely fry your quads. Make sure to pick a heavy weight because you are only doing 5 reps per set. So choose a heavy weight that you can challenge yourself with. And here's my most important point for this movement. You must do 4-second eccentrics. So take 4 seconds to lower the weight down. The results you see from this will blow your mind. Next up is the barbell RDL. Here I'll do 2 sets taken to failure, failing within the 5 to 9 rep range. Keep a flat back, keep your legs straight, and lower down extremely slowly. Again, 4-second eccentrics. And make sure to get a deep, painful stretch and hold that deep, painful stretch for 2 seconds. You may need a bit more rest time between sets here. This is a very intense movement again, so make sure you're resting long enough between sets. You've caught your breath and you've re-energized to go back into your second set. An alternative movement you can do is dumbbell RDLs, of course. These are equally as good. I have just been doing barbell RDLs as of late. Next, I move on to the seated leg curl. Make sure you're locked in position here. The pad literally has to be crushing your thighs. That's how tight it needs to be in order to fully isolate your hamstring. Adjust the seat so that you get a stretch at the top of your movement. It may mean you need to push your seat back or forward, depending how long your legs are. And again, hold that stretch for a couple seconds and then squeeze your hamstring at the bottom. Leaning forward might help with the stretch effect. Leaning back may also help. It's up to you to decide. I tend to alternate between leaning forward and leaning back. Here I'll do 2 sets again, 8 to 12 reps to complete failure. And if I'm feeling energetic, I'll make sure to do lengthened partials after I fail. And if you want to know the truth, this is the only variation form of hamstring curl that you should be doing. It's the only one that I found that is going to allow you to feel a really deep stretch. So in my opinion, it's far more superior than a lying hamstring curl, for example. I never do those anymore because you just don't get the same stretch with your hamstring than you do with a seated hamstring curl. As I said, we know from the literature that that lengthened position, that deep stretch, lengthened partials are a big driver of hypertrophy. Then after this, I'll go back to the quad extension, but here I'll do single leg quad extensions. I'm still trying to fix my quad imbalance between my right and my left quad. So this machine, this movement allows me to fix that imbalance. So by doing this, my legs can become more symmetrical. Therefore, I can have a more proportionate physique. Plus, the full stack on my machine is quite light. So in order to make my reps harder, I need to do single leg extensions. I would advise you to start with your weaker or smaller quad, then take 10 deep breaths and move on to your stronger, bigger quad. Here I'll do 1 set to failure, failing within the 8 to 12 rep range per quad, so 2 sets in total. And for my final movement, last but not least, we have the toe press on the leg press, aka a calf raise. Here I'll do 2 sets, failing within the 15 to 20 rep range. This is my favorite calf variation by far. It's the only one I feel a strong contraction with. I also get a nice stretch at the bottom, which is very important for calf growth. And I see way better results using that higher rep range as well. Again, make sure to pause in your contraction, and pause in the stretch, and go to complete failure. And boom, again, we've hit that golden rule of 9 to 12 hard sets per muscle group per week. For legs, we're using optimal movements with optimal strength curves, backed by biomechanical science. It's enjoyable, and of course, this means it's going to be effective and going to produce long-term results for you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you want to know whether you can swap this exercise for that one. Spoiler alert, the answer is probably yes. Again, above all else, as long as you have those volume and intensity principles down, aka 9 to 12 hard sets per muscle group per week, then it matters less about what machine or what movement you do. But if you want to know what I do on my leg day, here it is. You don't need to follow this order, remember. You don't need to use these exact movements if it's taken. Efficiency is key. If the quad extension is not available at the moment, move on to the next exercise and come back to it later when it's free. So hope this helps. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter for free training programs. Make sure to join Club Physique for 15+ hours of exclusive fitness content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.